viewer. Welcome to today's episode of Women's View. I'm your host, Anne Morimi, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. Today is an interesting day. Of course, the Safari Rally is happening, and there's a lot of excitement, a lot of memes, and a lot of videos about Russia, and there's an excitement in the air. But we're just delighted to be with you once more, and I hope that you're keeping warm. It's also quite cold, and it's just basically great to see you. So I'm in studio, and I'm joined by a lady who is doing amazing things in healthcare and also in the space of women's health. And I want to give her a chance to introduce herself, and then we'll get into the topic. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne. Thank you very much for having me. Hello, my name is Cindy Arunga Tambwe Kalala, and I am a women's health advocate and also CEO of Vaji. You might have heard about us over the last few days, over the last few weeks. But I'm very happy to be here and to chat with you, Anne, about this today.
Excellent. I like the way you introduce yourself. You're a women's health advocate. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about something that is very common, and that we need to really. There's a lot of stigma around it, and we want to sort of destigmatize it. We'll be talking about period shame. So a while back, actually about a year and a half ago, there was a story about a young girl who was 14 years, and she got to experience her period while in class. And it's like she was not quite very well prepared for it. And so she had a leak. And because of that, there was a lot of shaming by the teacher, unfortunately, and also probably the rest of the classmates. And this girl was so traumatized that she actually committed suicide.
Yeah.
And she committed suicide because her periods came.
Can you imagine that?
Something that should be celebrated is what caused her to end her life.
It's just so interesting, because when you look at, when you really think about periods and being such a beautiful thing, I mean, being the source of life, really, it's just a very sad thing when you think that there's so much shame around it, and so much shame around the idea of the vagina, or any sexual reproductive health with women specifically. There's so much shame, and that's what leads to those kinds of situations.
Yeah,
exactly. We have to do better.
We have to do better. And interestingly, it was coming from a teacher who is really the person that you really expect it not to be coming from.
Right.
So it also means that we need to really look at our society and figure out where is the shame coming from, and what can we do to end it.
Yeah.
Because you're right, periods are about life. So to associate them with death and shame is really going counter what they're meant to be about.
Yeah, and when you think about it, it's like God made us this way.
Yeah.
It's a function of our biology. Everybody walking around every day is alive because a woman had a period.
Exactly.
And so for us to not hold it in this place of honor and respect, and really, I mean, if you ask me, we should be bowing down to every woman who's on her period, because they could choose to give life at that time, but they choose not to.
They choose not
right?
to, so they have that.
They have that, and so it's, I think that when you ask what do we need to do as a society, and it starts with the young boys. We have to teach them better. We had a conversation earlier about this, where we were talking about how, there's separation. The boys are talked to in one corner about, their voices are going to break and all that. And then the girls are talked to in another corner about maybe they're talked to, not always, right?
Not always.
Not always. But they're talked to over here isolated. And then the boys are trying to investigate and see which girls have already had their period. And then the girls are trying actively to hide it.
Exactly.
Right?
You do.
And it's like, so if this is all happening, no wonder we have so much shame around it.
Yeah, because it starts from a very young age. And already when we are telling our girls that when we want to talk to you about your period, number one, you need to like come away from society a little, so that we can tell you this little secret.
Yes.
And we're whispering it.
Yes.
Instead of celebrating it. Yeah. And it actually also reminds me of the fact that a lot of girls tend to be very conflicted in terms of their feelings when they get their first period.
Yeah.
There are those who know nothing about it, which is really the worst category. and they think, am I sick? Am I dying? What is wrong with me? Why am I bleeding?
But could you imagine, like, nobody's ever told you anything, and then one day you're just bleeding, and you're like, what is going on?
I know, and it's from your vagina, and you can't even tell anybody. It's really, I think that's one of the worst case scenarios.
Yes.
Then there are those who have been told, but they've been told in a way that makes them to be embarrassed instead of makes them to be embracing, to embrace it and to be happy.
Yes.
So they feel like it's a loss in terms of they've lost their childhood or they're maturing and they're not happy about it.
Yes. But I feel like within that same category, there's also the ones who they know something's happening, and then but because of the adults in their lives and perhaps how they've presented themselves, they are so afraid to share it with anybody.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so you'll hear stories of girls who use toilet paper, and they'll use that for a very long time before they ever tell anybody because they're so afraid. They feel like they've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Or maybe they feel like somebody, you know, the adults in their lives will be upset at them for having this natural thing happen, which is it's so sad.
Exactly. And so that's a group where maybe you can find a girl has had her period and has not told even her mom.
Yeah.
And it also makes me really feel that as moms, we need to really reach out to our girls.
Yes.
Speaking of which, I was on was it Instagram? And I saw that there's a lady, Mama Olive, talking about you know, the fact that she bleeds every month and she uses pads, and she was telling her 4-year-old.
Yes.
And her 4-year-old could, you know, she could follow. It wasn't too detailed, but there was also a curiosity about it, and she just gave the information. It was age appropriate.
Yes.
And I thought that was very wonderful because the girl is starting to get used to that idea from a very tender age.
Yes. And imagine by the time her period comes, how she'll respond to it.
Yeah.
You know, that fear, that shame, it won't be a part of her DNA because it was never introduced.
Exactly.
You know, and every child is born a blank slate. And so if they're getting to 13 years old and suddenly they have this shame and they have, you know, all these negative feelings, somebody's fed that in.
Yes.
You're not born ashamed.
No.
Right? And so the fact that we as a society are feeding that into our children, I mean, that's a really big problem because, I mean, why are we doing that?
Yeah,
you know,
we need to look at ourselves because that is a byproduct of something we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to look at our ways. What are we doing that is wrong so that we can undo it?
Yeah. And I think when it comes to that question of what are we doing that is wrong? You know, because if we can get to the root of that, then we can really solve that problem.
Exactly.
And, you know, for us, and, you know, I'm with Vaji, and Vaji is a feminine hygiene company. We provide organic, cotton, dye-free, chemical-free products. And a big part of our messaging is around educating around the menstrual cycle and helping people ask why. And that's, we're real big believers in empowering people and giving permission to ask why.
Yeah.
But outside of that, what we as a society, kind of going back to what you were saying, need to do is, you know, we believe is the absolute opposite of what's going on. Because currently there's shame and there's guilt. And how do we counter that? Because this is on the other side of the pendulum.
Yeah.
The pendulum's got to swing all the way back for it to come to a neutral ground.
Exactly.
And so for us, our approach has been, let's be bold about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Let's be proud about this thing that is beautiful and is a source of life.
Yes.
It's spiritual.
Yeah.
You know, none of us is walking around if a woman's not having a period.
Yeah. And I like that approach because really that's the way to look at the issue. And so one of the things I think we can do is talk to our girls early, openly, and our boys. Because even our boys came because a certain lady gets her periods. And of course now when conception happened, there was no flow, which is how you know sometimes that you're pregnant.
Yes.
So, you know, I think that it's okay for boys to know about it because
I think
it's part of the way they came.
I think it's necessary for boys to know, not just okay.
Necessary.
It's absolutely necessary because when you look at population-wise, you know, they're a very big part of the population.
Yes.
And so if there's shame, it's not just coming from the women. It's coming from all sides, right? And so if they know and they understand and they're empowered to know that this is an honorable and it's something they should really hold in a high place, then inevitably, as our girls grow up and the girls in their lives grow up, then they know how to support it.
Yes.
You know, I always tell my husband that for me, and I've got a 3-year-old son, You know, I would be the proudest mom if one of, you know, by the time my son's 13 and he's got a friend who starts her period, if he's the kid that's like, oh, I got to run and get her something so she can cover up while I go figure out how to get her a pad.
Instead of laughing in the corner and embarrassing, you know.
Yes.
That's such a good like approach to it. If you find yourself with a girl who, like, you know, accidents happen, irrespective of the age.
Yes.
But yeah, if you find a boy or a man who is willing to help you, you know, and brings us to the second point of the help. You know, sometimes you even want to go and shop, and maybe sometimes it's a man doing the shopping.
Yes.
And here he is at the pharmacy. He needs pads. And, you know, they've already been wrapped individually, wrapped again in a plastic bag.
And then in a newspaper.
And then now they have to bring out the newspaper, fold it, and then put sellotape, and you're like, okay.
I'm like, what is this? It's like you're committing a crime. They're trying to hide a crime scene or something.
Yeah,
you know, and you know, that was something that was so big for us in developing Vaji. And you know, and you'll see later, our packaging is really beautiful. Okay. It's beautifully done, and part of what we wanted was to get away from this idea of we have to hide this thing. Why are we hiding it? Why?
Why? What's the point of hiding it? There's no point of hiding it, actually. And I don't know why, but that's how society has conditioned us. You know, I started my period when I was in class 6. And I have nieces, and one of my nieces has been going for, we've been having those kinds of talks because she's around 10. And so one of the times we did it, my mom was in the room. And you know what she told me? She was like, oh, Anne, your periods came so early. And I was like, whoa.
Oh.
I was like, oh, by the way, I didn't even know that they came early because in my class, a few of the other girls had already gotten their periods. But you see, I'm now 40, and this was when I was in class 6. This is the time my mom was telling me she thought they came early. But nevertheless, she was, I knew about it, and I knew what to do, and I'm grateful because, of course, that is because of her and her preparations around it. And she never made me feel that it came early. I know now girls are getting it as early as 9 years old.
I mean, the food we're eating, what we're exposed, but that's a really great thing you brought up, because you know, the fact that this is changing, the fact that girls are getting it earlier, it also, I'm a big believer in asking why, right?
Yeah, because
so the environment, but the environment that we're in, we're consuming different things. We're exposed to different kinds of, you know, just all kinds of different things in the food, in the air, you know, and so our bodies respond to what we're exposed to, right? And the other thing that people often don't ask when it comes especially to menstrual products is, what are you exposing yourself to? And what does that mean? In the long term, in the short term, what does that mean?
I know. Is there something maybe that, okay, sometimes the reasons for it coming early could be beyond your control, especially if it's got to do with toxins in the environment and maybe in the foods that we're eating. But is there something maybe someone can do? Okay, first of all, is there an ideal age for it to be happening? Because nine seems to be a little early.
It does seem to be early, but I also think it's a little bit difficult to answer that because a lot of times your body is responding to different kinds of things, whether it's toxins in the air and what you're eating, but also sometimes when you see children that may be a little bit heavier, they tend to have their period a little bit earlier just because the body is tricked into thinking, oh, this is a woman now,
she's
right?
Mature.
She's mature and she's ready.
She's about to, she's ready to conceive, to be able to give birth.
Right, but that's a whole biological thing, and I don't think that you would have control over that. But when it comes to, okay, so when your period does come, what are you exposing yourself to at that point? Because you have to think, whatever you're using, that's, you know, 4 to 7 days for most women of 24-hour access to your body.
And you know, it's good you bring that up because recently there's been, like, you know, last month, I don't know whether it's last month or this month where we celebrated the menstrual hygiene
May
day.
28th.
Oh, you have the day, you found the day last month, May 28th.
Yes.
And I love the way we celebrated it this year. There was a song that was done by Chicky. Did you see the dance?
Oh, did I see the dance?
Were you part of the dance?
Did I see the dance? Was I part of the dance? All of the above.
All right.
All of the
fantastic. And you know, I saw the preview the day before, and then I was so excited. I was looking forward to it coming the next day, and I watched it and I was like, this is awesome. We need to celebrate this stage of women. And then also there's the negative side of it is that there's a bit of awareness that some of the products we're using are not good for us in terms of how they're affecting our bodies. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You know,
Because when you were introducing your products, Vaj, you said
dye-free, chemical-free,
and I'm like, why would there be need for chemicals in a pad, for example, in a tampon?
Those are good questions.
Yeah.
You're asking very good questions, and I think that a part of Vaji's mission is to empower you to ask those questions.
Yeah.
And I have to be politically correct about how I answer this question.
Yeah.
But essentially, what I would encourage everybody to do is to do your homework. When you're using something, dig in, dig deeper, find out more of what you're exposed to, because there are a lot of products that are available to us and may not always be the best for us, whether they are, whether they have chemicals that do different things, if it's, imitating something in your body that then triggers something else, or, if you're sitting in it for 24 hours a day for 3 to 7 days in a month.
You want to be curious. You want to be curious enough to know what is in it.
Yes.
Is it good for me? Could it be harming me?
Could it be harming you?
Yeah.
But that's on you to do your research. That's on you to dig deeper and to ask. I mean, who's providing your products? Ask them. They owe it to you to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they owe it to you to tell you what they're exposing you to.
And you know what? The reason we're talking about period shame is that when periods are a taboo topic, you find that even information about them is also taboo. Because, for example, if I'm a 12-year-old girl and I've started my periods and I want to know about the pads that I'm using and what they're made of, who am I going to ask? Am I going to ask the seller who is wrapping them for me in excessive newspapers? Am I going to ask my brother or my father who is embarrassed to talk about it?
Yeah.
So I think that this awareness and this excess information around periods is very helpful.
Yeah, it's important.
It's important.
It's necessary because, again, when you're exposing yourself for so long, 3 to 7 days, 24 hours a day, that's something that you should know. You should have the answers. And to me, I believe that the companies should be able to answer you. If you're buying their products, you're putting money in their pocket.
Yeah.
Therefore, they owe it to you to answer that, know. And, unfortunately, what has happened is that a lot of products that are here locally are sourced from very, very far. They're brought in by companies. They're imported by companies that have no personal connection to Kenyan women.
Yeah.
So as a result, you're seeing that there's certain things that may be passed that wouldn't pass if they were providing this product for their mother, sister, or aunt.
Exactly.
There's a different level of care when you know that the people that you love are going to use the product that you're putting out. And for me, especially in the process of developing Vaji, and I worked with an amazing team, which I'm so grateful for. But I always said, if I don't want my daughter to use the product, we can't put it out.
Yeah.
And I've got a 9-month-old daughter, so she's got a little while before she gets there.
Yeah.
But for me, I said, if I don't feel comfortable saying my daughter can sit in this for 24 hours a day, 3 to 7 days a month, then no, we won't put it out, because why would we? That's not right.
Yeah. You raised something that is very, very important. There's a huge disconnect between the manufacturer and the end user, and it leads to a lot of neglect and lack of concern.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because that is so obvious, but this is it's like dawning on me for the first time. Of course, that makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference, because you have to think, and I don't know if you saw this huge movement a few years ago, was the hashtag #MyAlwaysExperience movement.
I saw that. I saw that.
And people would take pictures of a product that was perhaps sold outside of the country. It had the same packaging and everything.
Yes.
But it was sold outside of the country versus what was sold here.
I remember that very well. And it's something that also is very, very, very negative and very, very bad, because it feels like things are being dumped in Africa for Africans, and that's political, of course. But yeah, that's the hashtag. If you want to get more of that story, it was my always experience. My always experience. Yeah. So guess what? We need to take a short break.
Okay.
So viewer, keep it right here. We shall be back in a few minutes.
Awesome.
Welcome back. Today we're talking about period shame, and it's such an awesome conversation. In fact, I'm wondering why it's taken so long to get here, but nevertheless, I'm happy that we're here. And yeah, basically, before we took a break, we're talking about the products that are in the market, and I want us to talk a little bit about Virgie, because I've had certain complaints from ladies about the products that we use, the pads. You know, they make them feel so wet.
Yeah.
They sometimes give rashes. You know, when you have a
Yes.
little child and they have a diaper rash,
Yes.
it's like you're an adult, but you're feeling like you have a diaper rash. You know?
Yes, I get what you mean. And it's
And before we even get to the problem, how do you deal with it? Do you know how to deal with if you have that rash? What can you do?
Oh boy. Well, you know, the tough thing is that a lot of people think it's normal to have that rash.
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to have that rash. It is not a normal part of menstruation to have that rash or have that itch. And, you know, maybe there's some people that are a little bit more sensitive and they will get something anyway, regardless of what they use.
Yeah.
But it should not be the norm that that is something people experience.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to dealing with that, gosh, when it comes to the rash, I just think, do whatever you need to do to be comfortable, and if that means maybe
Changing your product.
or changing your products, if it means changing your products more often, you know, or if it means after your period you have some days where you can air out.
Yeah, I know, because it's basically you just need to dry, because it's the moistness that causes it. Yeah.
Yes, but it's just, you know, I think that we've also been conditioned to think that that moistness is a part of menstruation, when there are products that don't leave you feeling moist. You know, one of the comments, we've gotten quite a number of reviews from the people that have used our products so far, and we're seeing 4 things that are recurrent, right? There's the first thing that everyone's like, oh my gosh, it feels like I'm wearing nothing but my underwear.
That's a joy. I know women out there are celebrating that, you know?
Yeah, but that's cotton. That's what cotton does, you know? And cotton in itself, it absorbs 27 times its own weight. Oh, okay. And so as a result, it's very absorbent. And because that's what we're using on our product, people are feeling like, oh my goodness, this is so light and airy. I don't feel like I'm walking around with this thing, you know? But the other thing that we're hearing is what you're talking about with the wetness. And they're saying, I feel dry, I don't have an itch, I don't have a reaction after. And it's just so interesting. I mean, from my perspective, it's interesting to see people respond that way, because while I knew that this was an issue, I just didn't realize how much people would appreciate that specific thing, you know? And so that's been interesting as well. But the other review that we're getting, and, you know, kind of like, with what we were saying earlier in terms of the quality of what you're putting in your body, is people realizing that there are long-term effects to whatever you expose yourself to. You know, you could do it in the short term and it could look cheap right now, but what does that mean in medical bills later?
Exactly.
You know, it catches up at some point.
And basically what you're trying to say is that some of the products we use have got chemicals that make us bleed longer and that are harmful to our whole feminine system.
You know,
I know you're so politically correct, and you're almost saying nothing.
You know, I don't like to go into that because it gets much more complex than that. But I just would encourage the users. I would encourage, if you're using a product, do your research. That's all. You know, do your research. Look at stuff that has been published about your product. There's information out there. So look at it. The internet is a beautiful thing these days. There's a lot of information out there. So do your research and find out what you're exposing yourself to, what you may be exposing yourself to unknowingly.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked a lot about pads. And what about when it comes to tampons? Do they have the same? Because you see, when you're wearing tampons, you don't feel wet because you insert it into your vagina.
Right.
And
so you don't feel wet. But the other thing about that, though, is you may not feel wet, but you have to think that now this is something you're inserting into your body.
And it has chemicals. Oh my God.
Okay, so think about it from that perspective.
I thought it didn't. I thought it was just a cotton that has been like compressed so that when it gets wet, it expands and.
That sounds really nice, but I would encourage.
That's how I thought it is.
You know, there's this experiment that we do, and I would encourage, if you're looking out there, grab an organic pad, tampon, and organic cotton, and grab a regular cotton, usually it's viscose. Grab a regular one and put them both in a glass of water. See what happens. Just watch it for about 5 minutes. It doesn't take you that long.
Yeah.
But usually what you'll see is that the tampon that's made of viscose starts to disintegrate. And so you're seeing these synthetic fibers disintegrating. What does that mean?
They're remaining.
Okay, so that's sitting in your body. This is one tampon within 5 minutes. So think about having that for 24 hours a day. How many tampons are you going through? How much residue is that of these synthetic fibers? And what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, I think I like people to do their research and conclude for themselves, but try it.
Try it and, give us your feedback so that we can see whether what Cindy is saying is real or, but what I like about this conversation is we're opening up our space for women to question, for women to be curious, for women to talk, because for a very long time, this whole period, talking about periods, and we're talking about anything to do with the vagina, including childbirth and the amount of blood that you lose after you get a child. There's so much harshness about it. Like
so much.
Everyone is quiet.
So everyone.
So
is
you only
quiet.
discover it when you go through it, and then you discover it, and you're so shocked because you're like, I didn't know that I would bleed this much after a childbirth.
And then the thing is, but you're also like, is it just me?
Yeah, because of the lack of, you're isolated.
Yeah, you're isolated. Nobody has ever told you that they went through this thing.
Exactly.
And so you're suddenly like, I'm going through it. Maybe it's just me. And,
Is it normal?
Is it normal? Or do I go share and somebody thinks that it's something wrong with me?
Exactly.
And there's been that other conversation too, where it's like, why do we immediately go to feeling like, where I'm just in this cocoon by myself, right, going through this thing, and it kind of feeds into that period shame.
That's true, that's true. And so I'm happy that these conversations we're having now are really opening up that space. And one thing that I'm very curious right now about, what is it that made you decide to go into this? Because I know that, I mean, you didn't study this in school.
No, I did
not. There must be an experience.
I did not study this in school. However, part of my degree is in public health. And so that connects to why I care. Also, I started my career in quality assurance. So I was born and raised in Kenya. I went to Precious Blood. And when I was done
You're
there...
a clever one. You know, PB, yeah? You've got to have some really high marks to get in, which is great.
A little bit. But wouldn't you want a smart person deciding what kind of
Even
products?
the amount of research that is, is coming off you is evident. Curious mind. That's great. Yeah.
But so then I went to PB, and after that, I graduated from there, and I went to college in the States. So I finished my bachelor's, and I also had my master's there. I did my master's there. And I had kids. And because my family's here, we would travel back and forth. And 3 years ago, we came on a trip, and I had a 1-year-old at the time. And we were here for a little bit over a month. And so I had to use feminine hygiene products. And when I used them, I just, a lot of it was stuff that I'd seen on the shelves like 10 years before that. In the States, and it no longer was even allowed to be on the shelf. And so for me to see it and use it and have an experience that wasn't fantastic, it just kind of was a trigger for my curious mind, because I wanted to find out why. It initially started from just me wanting to know, okay, so why is the product like this? Why is it on the shelf? What is in it that makes it this way? It's just, I have a curious mind. That's who I've always been. And so after finding out more, and the more I found out, the more that changed into, oh my goodness, something's got to be done about
Somebody needs to stop this or give an alternative.
Right. And then I was like, I went from something needs to be done to, okay, I need to do something about this. But also that's very much in my personality, because anybody that knows me personally would know that, I was 8 months pregnant at a protest. So I've always been that person who will be like, no, I will do what it takes to get fairness and justice. And really that's where this passion came from. And saying, you know what, if it's going to be, it is up to me. And I will gather a team, gather the resources, just ensure that we could put this together and really bring out a good product that's worth the women that are here, because there's strong women, beautiful women, confident women, and women who are not afraid to take space. That's who I see in Nairobi.
And that's who I see in you. And thank you so much for just taking those strides, because a lot of times we tend to complain about things, but we stop there. You know, we need to not like something, but we then need to offer a solution.
Right.
And we need to continue to offer the solution despite the challenges.
Yeah.
And you see, I like what you said. You brought a team together of people because you needed resources. You know, manufacturing is not something that is cheap.
No, it's not.
But look at you, you've actually been able to surmount it.
Yes.
Because we do have an excellent product.
Yes.
And kudos to you, girl.
Thank you.
You know,
thank you. But it's been an interesting journey, you know, because...
But it's such a short time. You're here 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
This product has been in the market for long.
Oh, no. This is, you know, 3 years in the making, and we officially launched on May 28th on World Menstrual Hygiene Day. We wanted it to be very indicative of who we are. We're bold. We're not afraid to take space, and we took it.
You've gotten a lot of traction in that case because, I mean, you know, considering that it's a pretty new product, there's been a lot of talk about it on social media. What are your handles in case people want to get more information about what you're offering?
Yeah, so our Instagram handle is @VajiLife, so VAAJI Life, and our website is vajilife.com, so VAAJILife.com. You can find out a lot more about what we're about, what we believe in as a company, and what we have to offer. Because at the end of the day, for us, we're here to serve you. And so we want to hear what you think. We want to hear how you feel. Tell it all to us. And, you know, I think kind of talking about going to what you were saying, it's been interesting because I feel that the product has spoken for itself when it comes to the traction that we've gotten. The reviews, I mean, check out our reviews on our Instagram or on our website. They're amazing. And because of that, there's been more and more people that are wanting to join the Vaji Life. They're wanting to try it out, and when they try it out and they're not disappointed, then they want to share. Yeah. So we've benefited a lot from that.
To hear what the experience has been for you.
Yeah.
And you see, when the market responds so positively, you know, you mentioned it earlier that you knew you were solving a problem, but you didn't know that the response from the market would be so overwhelmingly positive. You know, it's like the timing was just perfectly right for your product.
It really was, and you know, we've been so grateful for all the support. I think that, you know, the company is nothing without the people that we serve, and so we're just really grateful that people are getting more curious, are trying us out, and once they do try, a lot of people are sharing. You know, menstrual products, like we were talking about, there's been a lot of shame around that, but for the first time, we're seeing people snapping pictures and sharing it on Instagram, saying, hey, I'm a Vaji girl, you should join too. That's something that we didn't even intend for people to do, but suddenly, I mean, the packaging is beautiful, so there's that. But outside of that, they're having such a good experience that they want to share. And just to answer something that you'd said earlier about just the experience of putting this together, my husband and I were talking this morning about the many places we have been in this city where it's, you know, like industrial area. I'm in my heels and trying to talk to somebody about our conveyor belt, and they look at me like, what are you doing here? You know? So that's been a challenge too, of getting into these spaces that are very, you know, male heavy, male dominant, and then having to navigate them in a way that these people respect me and they understand that I know what I'm talking about, and that they will accomplish exactly what I ask. And I'm sure
you're there to make sure none of the specifications is off. You know?
And I'm sure, you know, if some of them are watching, they're probably like, oh, this woman, she is intense. But, you know, that intensity has gotten us here. So.
And it's gotten us a very awesome product, and here I am on national TV.
Oh my goodness!
And holding a part GBS TV Africa. And,
welcome to the new African woman, you know, everybody.
And I'm not wrapping it around a newspaper or something, or hiding it. You know, the way sometimes when you're on your periods, you want to like hide the pad, and sometimes you have to fold it, and you know, no, come on, just here it is. And when I open it, it's so soft. You know, I can immediately feel the cotton that you're talking about, and I'm like so excited that you've been able to give us such a good product.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think, you know, this is a really big part of changing the narrative with Africa, because we've gotten, you know, very used, and a lot of it is because of resources. We've gotten used to receiving products from the West or the Middle East, and, you know, while some of them have worked, and, you know, we've unfortunately gotten used to this narrative of local being poor quality. And Vaji was, for me, one of the things I was really keen on was ensuring that when we brought in a product, nobody else is bringing anything from outside could say we have better.
Oh, wow.
You know, because why not?
Yeah.
It's for us. It's for my mother. It's for my sister. It's for, you know, my friends.
It's for you
It's
as
for
well.
me. It's for my daughter down the road. So yes, we should have the very best for ourselves because, you know, no one's got us like we've got us.
Yeah, no one's got us. And we've got to really just be the ones who are supporting ourselves, because I find women, we let men sort of guide a lot of the things that are about us.
Yes.
Which is okay, but we are best placed to be able to bring these solutions because we know where the shoe itches.
Exactly. And you know, you bring up a very good point though, because I feel that a lot of times when men are making these decisions, and you know, especially when we look at, you know, from a fact of the head of the household and all of those things, that's great. There's different roles in life, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something that you're experiencing so intimately, I mean, to be a woman, and you know, I felt that for anybody to be making a decision on my menstrual products, they need to be somebody who has the experience, okay? Because then that gives them the permission to know what I need.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of women at the table making those decisions. And, you know, with Vaji, we were dedicated to changing that because we know how it feels. You know, if somebody is deciding that, hey, I'm going to give you a plastic pad and you're going to sit in it for 24 hours and then have an itch or a burn later, they've never experienced that.
Exactly.
So they don't know how bad it is to have that itch, right? So they're like, yes, I know it's a little inconvenient.
But just have it.
But just have it.
It's a good thing. Yeah. That's why my first reaction to touching it is like, it feels so different. You know, I can tell the cotton, because you're right. The others tend to feel like, you know, it's so interesting that you're saying plastic because it feels papery-ish.
It is plastic.
Yeah, it's plastic, which is even worse because it's harmful. Obviously, it's harmful to your body.
Well, and imagine you're sitting in it. It's usually hot. Right now is the cold season, but usually it's hot, it's moist. Think about sitting in plastic for hours and hours. What does that mean? I don't want to tell you. So you should just think about it and conclude for yourself and, you know, see what that means for you and what that means, because then, you know, as women, we do have the power to give life. So when you have a child, everything that's in your body, DNA-wise, you're passing that along.
You are.
And your child will pass along what they carry to the next generation. Yeah. What does that mean?
That means you have to be very, very concerned and like in the driver's seat about what it is that you are about and what you're using, and you know. So I'm so excited to have had this opportunity to be able to talk to you.
Oh, well, thank you.
And what you're doing is amazing. I mean, you know, I knew it was great, but I feel like it's so much more.
Well, no, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on your show. I think what you're doing is amazing. To create spaces for women is amazing because, you know, not a lot of those exist. And to me, I believe so much in synergy between women. I believe so much in women being able to accomplish so much when we come together.
And I must ask you, what next? I know you've just launched, but in my head, I already have this curiosity, like, what are you going to produce next? Do you have anything that you can give us a hint?
Oh boy, I can say this. Watch our social media and our website, so vajilife.com and Vaji, V-A-A-J-I, Life on Instagram, because we've got some really exciting things coming up, and we might have to have another conversation in a little bit.
I think we need to, because I already have so many like ideas in my head about products that have been made that could be so much better if they're designed by us, for us. Yes. And I also like the name of your products, Vaji, which of course is short. It's about the vagina, you know. Yes. Yeah, because you know what, we need to talk about it. It's a body part, and it's a body part that is amazing. Yes, that does amazing things. Yes. I mean, everybody's alive because of it. Yes. So, and that's, you know, and I was telling you earlier, we actually had a different name for the brand all the way until 6 weeks before launch. And then we had to have this rush of changing all of our packaging, all of our material, because then suddenly we were like, no, we're not going to call this anything but what it is. Yeah. You know, and part of like trying to find ways to be clever about it is what has led to the problem of now, you know, period shame and shame around the vagina, when it is a beautiful thing that we should be celebrating. So this is our little community service and making Vaji
vagina, a very common household term.
Used all over.
Used
by
all over.
By all and sundry,
well,
every month.
Yes, and we want you to be a vagi girl. You're confident, you're bold, you're strong, you believe that you deserve better, you're a vagi girl. So coming over.
Excellent. I have nothing more to add. Please go to their social media handles for more information. Remember that you can also check us out on GBS TV Africa on Facebook and Instagram. And it's been such a pleasure discussing this topic with you. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.